Okay, so next up we have John Goodrich-Mahoney from the Electric Power Research Institute. He is a principal technical leader in the groundwater and land management program area within the environment sector of EPRI. John joined the Institute in 1990 from the Washington, D.C. office from the Washington, D.C. office of the Environmental Protection Agency. I didn't realize that. John leads research programs on pollinators, water quality criteria, and environmental impacts of renewables. So please welcome John.
Good afternoon, everyone. Iris, I'd like to thank you for the invite. It's been a pleasure being here, and I think a couple of you know that EPRI sponsored a workshop last week in Washington. Iris was there, and I see a few folks in the audience who also attended that workshop. And we're just beginning the process of working in the area of pollinators. And these workshops are really valuable to us. We find out what other organizations are doing, other sectors, the NGOs, governmental agencies. So we see them as very valuable to help educate us as to what's going on. This is a new field for us. We're just in a very steep learning curve. I'd like to just take a few minutes and let you know a little bit about EPRI. There may be a few of you who are not familiar with the organization. We're a 501c3 nonprofit charitable organization. We do work for the public good, and by doing that we also serve our members, which are mostly electric utilities worldwide. We also seek funding from other sources when solicitations come out from DOE and California Energy Commission and other organizations. And we conduct a broad public partnership collaborative research program. Also, I think it's important to know that EPRI, at least in the environment sector, we contract out all the work we do, most of all the work we do. We contract with universities, national labs, and consulting firms. That's our model. And so we seek organizations that are outstanding, doing great work, and have great talent to help EPRI develop its research program. So our job, or my job, is to envision what that program should be. We put together a portfolio every spring and we send it out on the street, and we hope the members will fund it. And fortunately they usually do. I'm also pleased to see a number of our members here today, which is great. So why are we involved in pollinator research at this time? A number of the reasons are listed here, of course, and many of you have talked about these areas throughout the days. And I think importantly for the Institute, a lot of our members are questioning. They're getting questions from internal and external stakeholders. What are you doing relative to pollinators? And for us, that's really great, because then we can help them answer those questions. We also are very research-oriented organizations, so we bring good science in to any issue that we're looking at. And we help utilities address sustainability goals through the work that we do in pollinators and many other areas. And of course, it helps to fulfill EPRI's charge to conduct research for the public good. So there's all these different factors that are involved in why we're involved in pollinators, and of course in other areas of research that we do within the environment sector. So when did we start a formal research program on pollinators? Well, as you can see, it was just very recently. In 2015, at one of our advisory meetings, I put on the agenda a 30-minute brainstorming session for pollinators. And it was just absolutely amazing. An hour and a half later, we were still talking about pollinators, so I thought, this is perfect. I've really hit on something that the industry is interested in, and they're committed to it. And so the following year in our research cycle, we put a program in place, an initial program on research. But prior to that, before we had this coordinated effort within the environment sector, we have been doing some work on pollinators, as you can see here. So we had published 7 technical reports, 1 journal paper, and we've been involved in a number of other activities with the members related to pollinators. So what is the content at the current time of our research program? What we're doing right now, and some of these activities we've completed, we started a member survey, which we have completed. We conducted this survey so we would have a better sense of the core group of funders, what they're doing on the ground relative to pollinators. And then we started 2 literature reviews, one which has been completed on specific to distribution and transmission systems, and we're starting another literature review on herbicides and pollinators. That work we'll be completing by the end of the year. And then I think also importantly, we started this multi-year research program, which comprises 2 components. One is observational studies, and the other is manipulative studies. We started the observational studies last year at 2 locations, and we continue doing those studies this year, and then next year we will start manipulative studies. We're also developing field protocols for this work, because my vision for the program is to go beyond, of course, these 2 sites. We would like to have multiple sites around the United States, and so these protocols will be used to engage our members, local expertise, to put boots on the ground. And so this will give a sense to a member utility what it's going to take to do a program like this to help them cost it out with a local university or, let's say, an experienced consulting firm. And then we have another initiative which is somewhat larger and broader. It's managed by my colleague Jessica Fox, and this is called the Pollinator Initiative. And one of the things that it's focusing on is the development of metrics for measuring results within the electric utility industry. Here's our pollinator team. As you can see, we've got quite a few people working on it. They don't work full-time on this. I don't work full-time on it myself. I have lots of other responsibilities. But we have put this core group of people together within the environment sector that we all work together to help advance the work that we're doing on pollinators. And so I guess a little further here, I have a few more sentences on what we've done in the past. I mentioned the technical reports and the 1 refereed journal paper. And we do success stories with members when they use EPRI results. And it's very important for the members to have these success stories. And then we also award tech transfer awards annually for using EPRI information. And these are very important activities for our members, and this information goes out to the community of members to show how these companies have worked with EPRI on different projects along the way. Here's an example of a report that we completed a couple of years ago. This is our bee EMF project, and a question came up about bees on rights-of-way. Does electric and magnetic field disrupt bees in terms of being able to search for food and navigate and things like that? There was also a small IVM component, integrated vegetation management component, to this work in terms of just describing at the study sites what the companies were doing in terms of managing their vegetation on the right of way. And here are some of the results from that. I think the most important thing was that we were able to determine from multiple study sites that there's no effect on bees related to electric and magnetic fields. So one of the aspects of the work we do, and we have been doing this for many years, is integrated vegetation management. We have a long history of research on integrated vegetation management, and this, to a large degree, underpins this new work we're going to be doing with pollinators. EPRI has developed IVM standards. We have 10 principles and 42 criteria, and we use these through IVM assessments. You can think of these as benchmarking exercises with our members. And we also developed, working with other stakeholders and another nonprofit, we developed the Rowe Stewardship Council accreditation. And that council also uses these 10 principles and 42 criteria, which were vetted by 40 different organizations, including EPA and a number of NGOs. So it was very satisfying to us that they hardly touched them at all. They thought they were pretty good. And so that was really very nice. And we've developed information such as an IVM training manual. And then, and of course I mentioned the manipulative studies. The IVM training manual we're going to update probably in the next couple of years. We've done a lot of work on invasive species on the transmission system. And then now we're doing the pollinator work. So once we go through this cycle with the pollinator work, we plan on updating that manual to reflect the results of the research that we've done. So here's a few slides on the membership survey. It's really astounding. You see the reporting response here from 25 companies. These 25 companies are our core group of members that are funding this work. And as I said earlier, we went out to do this survey to understand what's going on with our members on the ground, what type of work they're doing, and we really wanted to find out about this information to help inform the work that EPRI is doing. And this response rate just reflects the high level of interest on the part of the members in the work that we're doing. It's just really very gratifying. And I'll just show a couple of slides here. Here are some results from questions we asked concerning what type of activities the companies are doing. And there's quite a lot of things they're doing on the ground, and some of these activities are thought to help pollinators. That's really a key word there. They're not really sure that that might be the case. And of course, that's one of the things we're going to be doing, is seeing whether some of these activities are in fact beneficial to pollinator protection and promotion, and how cost effective those activities are. So some of the key conclusions from the survey were concerns about pollinators is widespread among the members of the core group. But interestingly, 64% of the members are not conducting any research at the present time. So this is a great opportunity for EPRI to help out with a research program to support their needs. Stakeholders are primarily catalysts for pollinator research. These are both internal and external stakeholders, as I mentioned earlier, who are asking questions about utilities. What are they doing relative to pollinators? And research is primarily happening in the Northeast. There's a little bit of bias in that because a lot of our members are in the Northeast. So, so don't look at that as being where most of it may be happening. The other thing we're thinking of doing, because we sent this out just to the core group, we're thinking of sending it out to all of our members to see what kind of response we get. And we may do that later this year or early next year in our next funding cycle. So I mentioned earlier we have 2 literature reviews. One we've completed, and I'm reviewing that now. We'll be publishing that in the next month or so, and we just started another one. And as I mentioned, it's focused on transmission and distribution, and some of the work was hand done because, for example, the Journal of Arboriculture and Urban Forestry is not on the search engines, and so our contractor did manual searches of those. And it's just very interesting. We know there's a lot of work going on out there by the federal government, by NGOs and other organizations. But this information is not getting into the peer-reviewed literature or the referenced literature. And so out of this survey, we found only 17 papers, published papers, Most of them were refereed papers, which is good. And 12 papers were on butterflies and 5 papers were on bees. And only 4 papers were on manipula studies. And only one of those was really a true manipula study. And there were 7 papers from Europe. So there's a lot of activity also going on in Europe relative to pollinators. Interesting results. That's the Carner blue fly right there, a butterfly right there in that picture. And the work is currently being conducted at SUNY Syracuse at the College of Environmental Science and Forestry. Our IVM forester is Dr. Chris Nowak, who we've worked with for many years. He's a very experienced, on-the-ground researcher who is very interested in taking that work and applying it across the industry. And our entomologist is Dr. Melissa Furkey. So we've teamed these 2 people together to do this work in 2 locations at the current time. One in New York and one in Ohio. So as I mentioned, they're multi-year research projects, and we're looking at baseline diversity of pollinators on the transmission system. What is that? And what can be done to manage pollinator habitat in a cost-effective manner on the transmission system. So I mentioned in 2018 we will start the manipula studies, and we're seeking other sites. We're currently in conversations with other members in the southeast and out west to conduct additional studies based on the protocols that we are developing. And those protocols would just be guides to help them. It's not set in stone. It's because we realize there will be site-specific considerations that have to be taken into consideration when they start these studies. So we had one season in the field, 2016, in New York and Ohio, and the team is out there as we speak. Well, they've been out there for a month or more now, both in New York and Ohio. And it's beginning to appear that there are discernible spatial and temporal patterns in flowering plants and pollinators on the 2 systems that we're looking at. And I think this is a fair statement that we may be the first folks to look at other pollinators on the transmission system, flies and beetles. Most people focus on bees and butterflies. Bees are the best pollinators. Butterflies are kind of middle of the ground. They're not great pollinators, but they're pretty out there. And just during this short period of time, last summer when they were out there, they collected over 3,200 species, representing, 3,200 specimens, representing 201 species and 42 families. There's a lot of abundance out there, just a lot of things. And here are some results from the work, showing 5 orders that were present and their percentages on those 2 systems. This is aggregated information for the 2 sites. And here are the bees and wasps. So the various percentages for each of the species that were found and aggregated for the 2 sites. So it'll be very interesting to see what evolves this year, and going forward over the next 3 or 4 or 5 years. I mentioned earlier we have this larger initiative that is managed by Jessica Fox. Jessica is working very closely with IRIS on this initiative. This is broader, a little bit broader than what we're doing right now with our members, because we want to engage other parties within this initiative. So we're seeking engagement with the federal government, with NGOs and other organizations that have a strong interest in pollinators to advance this work with all of these stakeholders. And as I mentioned, here are some things that we're doing as part of this Pollinator Initiative. And from my perspective, I think the metrics is very important out of all these things. These other things are important, but I think the metrics are extremely important as we move forward with this effort over the next 4 or 5 years. And I guess that's it. Any questions, please? Oh, thanks.